What is going on, Internet? My name is Lou, and I make Linux videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Fedora 22 beta. Fedora 22 is set to release in May, and we're going to be taking a brief overview and showing you guys what to expect from the next big upcoming release from the Fedora team. So first and foremost, the lock screen. The lock screen now runs on Wayland by default as opposed to X. So when you're greeted with the lock screen, it is now running on Wayland. So it looks very similar to our old lock screen, except now we've got Wayland support. So we are going to log in here. Now here we have our welcome screen. We're just going to progress forward. We're going to select our keyboard input method. We now have a privacy setup screen here, which is just a shortcut to the privacy settings that we have in the normal Gnome settings configuration, but now we're asked if we want to have location services on by default or not. Next, we can connect any of our online accounts. By default, we've got Google, OwnCloud, Windows Live, or Facebook. And then finally, we can start using Fedora. So we've got a getting started screen. This is going to allow us to watch how to do some very common tasks. We have browsing the web, connect to online accounts, use Windows and workspaces. It also has a Gnome help link, so we can learn how to use the Gnome desktop. And then finally, here is the Gnome desktop that we are all familiar with, for those of you that are Gnome users. So, as I discussed in my last video discussing Gnome 3.16, we're going to see some changes to the Gnome interface. The IDIefiant theme is now more closely developed with the Gnome shell theme and is migrating over to a CSS theme. So with that said, we're going to see some new menus here. I actually really prefer these to the semi-translucent black menus that you have in Gnome 3.14 and prior. Main reason for that for me is legibility. Now I'm using a very large, well, not very large monitor, but a rather large monitor, 27-inch LED monitor, and legibility wasn't too much of an issue for me, but with that black and white contrast, I can see it becoming hard to read on a smaller form factor such as a laptop or a tablet. So I think these new menus, so you've got this kind of gray color here with the blue selection, I think it's just much easier on the eyes, much nicer to read. The next big thing that you're going to notice is there is no longer this the bottom panel that displays notifications. I always thought that was a bit quirky, and it felt like it really didn't fit into the desktop very well. So now notifications are front and center. So they're going to be right up here where you would access normally your calendar. So calendar has now been pushed over here to the right, and we're going to have all of our notifications displayed over here on the left. So when a new incoming notification, when you receive one, you're going to see it right here in the center of your screen. And then you can access all your notifications in a threaded fashion here in this particular menu. It's going to group them together by application. So for example, if you have terminal being displayed, say 2 or 3 different messages, you're going to have those here, then maybe a software update, maybe a message in from Empathy, so on and so forth. So I really, really like that. If we come over here to the dash, again, it looks very familiar to what we know and love. However, it's got this new IDIefiant updated theme. We're running, again, Gnome 3.16 here. I would like to see some improvements with the dash, personally. I think there's a lot to be desired with the dash. It could be a lot more functional. So hopefully we see some of that in the next upcoming release of Gnome. But we access our applications the very same way in the previous version of Gnome. So we're going to select Show Applications. Again, this is going to give us 2 options, either all of our applications or frequently used applications, just by selecting these tabs. All of the apps are accessible with pages. You can see these 2 page indicators here over on the right, so it shows us what page we're working with. Also new, as of the last release of Gnome, is these application drawers, where applications are grouped by type. So for example, Sundry here, and then you've got utilities. Another minor gripe I have is not being able to easily create your own application drawer. I'd like to see drag and drop support so I can take, one application and drag it on top of another and create a drawer of its own. As of right now, the only way to do it is using the Gnome Software Center. You can create drawers, but it's not a very streamlined process and it's not very obvious to the new user. So I think if you're going to build something into the desktop, such as these drawers, I think you should make it very easily accessible by the user and something that's easy to figure out, and something that's a little more functional. So again, I'm still very much a fan of the Gnome desktop, but I think there can be some improvement here. So if you want to search for an application, just like in any other version, just start typing and you can launch your application that way. So speaking of, if we come over to our web browser and we do a search for Fedora 22 changes and select the first link that Google displays, we can see a long list of changes here in Fedora 22. Some of the more notable, changes here is the switch to the GCC in Fedora 22 to version 5, which is a new compiler. We also have GHC 7.8, and that's the Haskell compiler. Of course, we have the GNOME 3.16 desktop. So we have a change with the Xorg input stack. So we're replacing the current low-level input Xorg drivers with lib input using Xorg X11 DRV lib input wrapper. This is intended to eventually happen everywhere, but for now the change is limited to the Workstation project or the GNOME desktop alone. Login screen over Wayland. So this is a change in our login screen. Instead of having a GDM run on X, GDM is going to now run on Wayland instead. So now we're talking about Plasma 5, which is the KDE desktop. We're moving over to KDE 5 from KDE 4. We have some changes with Python 3. This is a kind of a big one here. We're replacing Yum with DNF. So if we select that, so this change is to make DNF, or the dandified Yum, the new default packaging tool in Fedora 22. So DNF was forked from Yum in January of 2012, and it's been available for experimenting in Fedora since the release of Fedora 18. The project is now fully capable of replacing Yum in the new Fedora installations. We want DNF to become the new default packaging tool in Fedora 22. So what is this going to allow us to do that Yum didn't? Well, this is going to let system admins, including users who routinely manage your packages using the legacy Yum, to perform all common packaging operations using DNF, change the command syntax apart from the replacing the command name. So providing implementation of the Anaconda backend on system can be bootstrapped completely without using legacy Yum. Providing an alternative to all Yum plugins from the Yum utils. Providing alternatives to all release engineering tools. Being ready or having the capacity to help out users with migration of their custom, so on and so forth. What's the benefit? A CLI package manager tool built on modern depth-solving technology or dependency-solving technology, which allows for faster and less memory-intensive operations. It's got C binding for lower-level libraries, so on and so forth. So let's see here. Current plugins for Yum are going to be ported over for DNF as well. So that's a big deal. Fedora's been using Yum for a long time. There's further documentation here for changes in DNF rather, CLI compared to Yum. We've got things like no skip broken option, which actually kind of stinks. I used to use that actually from time to time. Update and upgrade commands are the same. So let's see actually. Now I know we're only in beta, but let's see if that's active. It is. So I just ran an update using DNF instead of yum, and it appears as though we are updating. So, DNF looks like it's active and ready to go here on Fedora 22. And according to the documentation, it's going to use the same commands. So it should essentially be seamless. If you're used to yum, you're just going to be replacing DNF with the word yum. So update and upgrade commands are the same. Let's see. There's no more resolve dep command and no depless command. Let's see. The skip broken command line switch is not recognized by DNF. The semantics this was supposed to trigger in yum is now default for plain DNF update. Okay, there is no equivalent for yum skip broken. Let's see. In the case it amounts to masking an error. Okay. Invoking DNF update or DNF upgrade in all their forms has the same effect in DNF, with the latter being preferred. So DNF upgrade. In yum, upgrade was exactly like yum obsolete package. Okay. So, it looks as though they're doing their best to try to keep a lot of this the same. In yum, the running kernel is spared. There is no reason to keep this in DNF. The user can always specify concrete versions on the command line. DNF remove kernel such and such. Okay. So this is a big deal, switching package managers here. And it looks as though DNF offers a lot of improvements, but there are some commands that are not going to be the same between DNF and between yum. So there you go. That is DNF. So we've got a laundry list of updates here. We're going to let these run in the background as we move forward. So we have Ruby 2.2. It's the latest stable of Ruby. UEFI Secure Boot Blacklist updates. Currently, the implementation of UEFI Secure Boot does not include a facility to apply blacklist. Updates enabled by default. We provide a utility, DBX tool, which uses a systemd service to apply updates. And when there are updates, we update the package with the new data. DBX tool is currently not installed on UEFI machines by default. And when it is installed, its systemd service does not default to enabled. We got Perl 5.2. They talk about the redesign for Gnome shell notifications, which I already covered. Nautilus improvements. Let's see what that is. So this seeks to tie up some of the loose ends that were left over after the Nautilus design refresh. The Nautilus code base will be cleared up by porting it from the deprecated GTK action APIs to G-action. As a part of this, the view, gear, and app menus will be updated to match the current designs. So what are they talking about there? If we open up Nautilus, we see that there is this new menu here. I talked about this in my GNOME 3.16 video, which I just did. So within this particular menu, you can change the size of the icons, which have also been updated. I think these icons look amazing. They look really, really nice. They're following this new kind of trend with a flat color scheme, but I think these look fantastic. Much, much more improved over the default application icons. I have no intention on swapping these out for another icon set. I think they look great. You can sort things by name, size, type, or last opened. I usually do everything by type. And we now have an option here to show hidden files and folders. You still have a search feature here. You can go between home and all files. And if you'd like, you can get even more specific by selecting whether it's a document, selecting where you're going to search or what you're going to search for. So that is some of the minor changes here to Nautilus. Let's go on and see what else we have here. Pre-upgrade assistant. The pre-upgrade assistant is a tool to help people upgrade from one release to another and be sure to track important manual configuration changes they perform. So this is a nice tool. The pre-upgrade assistant. The idea behind the pre-upgrade assistant came from the notion that even during the rather short release cycles in Fedora, occasionally there are changes that are incompatible between releases, and which are either hard or nearly impossible to cover during a standard package upgrade. Examples would be major version upgrades of all applications or services that change configuration file syntax or on-disk date format changes. The pre-upgrade assistant works by analyzing the source system and will generate a report which will offer information and configuration files for typically changed settings and services. It offers a plugin architecture where component or functional area owners can contribute and write their own plugins in Python, Bash, or Perl that can generate additional information for the report. The pre-upgrade assistant is basically in addition to FedUp and offers additional help for upgrading systems from one release to a future one. That's pretty cool. So we've got a pre-upgrade assistant now for Fedora. So we have enhancing Mesa and Wine with direct 3D9 support will increase performance and reduce resource usage. We're going to now be running XFCE 4.12 in one of the, if you're using the Fedora spin. Here's a great example. We have a new notification that the upgrade was, or the update was complete. And here we have sudo DNF update is now complete. Very good. So those are some basic changes, a lot of which you're not going to see on the surface, some of which you are. Of course, we have updated packages and libraries as well. If you come into the Gnome settings, everything looks exactly the same as it did in Gnome 3.14, placed in the exact same area, and everything's accessible the same way. So you're not going to have a hard time finding any of those options. And that is pretty much it, guys. So in the Workstation, which is the default Fedora desktop, which is sporting the Gnome desktop, they also offer all their spins, which is going to give you KDE, XFCE. I believe they also have a mate spin as well. You can check all those out through Fedora's website when they make Fedora 22 live in May to download. And I believe the beta is downloadable in all of the spin formats as well. So that's a brief overview of what to expect in Fedora 22. I'm very excited about this particular release and what's going to be coming from the Fedora team. I hope you guys are too. Expect a final review and overview of Fedora 22 upon release in May. But until then, guys, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to subscribe to my channel for future content. Leave a comment in the comment section below if there's any questions that you have on Fedora or Fedora 22 in particular, and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. And until next time, guys, we will catch you later.